Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Glory Hunters weekly podcast. I'm here with Glory Hunter Nick. We got a few things to go through the week of football. Although it is an international week, it isn't as poppin'. Everything's kind of individual. You see, like over in Asia, you got World Cup qualifiers. You got a handful of Euro qualifiers here yet left, but they're not really getting, because they're not the big countries. We're really just waiting for things to kick off this week when all the clubs come back on Friday. How are you doing, bud?
I'm pretty good.
All right.
A little bored with the international break, but
yeah, I am. Well, I don't know. I got Netherlands. We got a big derby tonight, but it's a friendly between Netherlands and Germany over here. So I wouldn't say I was too bored, but I never thought because I was always, when I started getting into it, I was more international. Now I'm more club. So I guess that's just the way it goes. Let's go into. There's a big interview by Fabrizio. I hit the wrong button. Fabrizio Romano. Am I saying his name correctly? He's the Mr. Twitter.
Fabrizio Romano, yeah.
Fabrizio Romano. He did an interview talking to José Mourinho, and he says he's ready to go this summer, feeling good about some of the stuff he did in the past. Saudi's not out of the question. Cha-ching. Portugal job offer twice. That's an interesting job for him. He couldn't stand not being there every day, though. I think he'd go nuts. And then Chelsea fans chat, and we got a little clip for you from that interview. We'll play it right now.
The only one with 2 European finals consecutive, so in 2 years. What you did is, again, impressive as the entire history. What's the feeling about that? It gives you also the...
The first feeling is that it looked like this didn't happen. Because people, when they speak about me, normally they are more focused on what happened 15 years ago, 12 years ago, 10 years ago, 8 years ago. Yeah. And this is true. With so many great coaches in Europe. And normally the great coaches are coaching the best teams with more possibilities to get into finals. In the last years, I got 3 finals, the one with Man United and the 2 with Roma. And if we focus just on the past 2 years, I am the only one with 2 European finals. Yeah. So I look at it with a little bit of fun, but at the same time with some pride, because especially when you do with a team, with a club, without history, in Europe, you realize that was really something special. But this season I'm not going to play a final, but I hope that the next season I can say I'm the only one in the past 4 years that did 3 European finals.
Yes.
All right. Now, to get a little background on this, José Mourinho coached Chelsea, Tottenham. He had a stint in Man U. This is one of the greatest coaches of all time, but most people in Europe think that he's kind of lost a step over the years. Chelsea, how could I not remember that? That's really where he really... and, of course, FC Porto prior to that. The last manager outside the Big Five to win a Champions League. So, I mean, he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. But there are a lot of folks that think he lost a step. And I guess I want to ask you, like, does he make a good point? You know, the top guys aren't doing as well on paper as he is. I get the feeling he's kind of saying, I really belong in that Jurgen Klopp company. I really belong up there. You give me a lesser team with no history. I get you to finals. I can win them. Is that what's going on?
I mean, yeah, that's what he's saying, but is he right?
Well, is he right? Is he right? I mean, if you had a young coach that did just what he did, he would be on the biggest clubs lickety split. I mean, I think that's a fair. Like, he went back down. I mean, should big clubs be looking at him?
I don't know, because, all right, maybe, but yeah, he's made European finals, but it's the Europa Conference League final, it's the Europa League final. You know, when we talk about the Klopps, the Pep Guardiolas, they're winning Champions League finals. You know, even making like the semi-finals of the Champions League for me is a bigger achievement than making the final of the Europa League.
I don't think that's a question. But if he was 40 years old, this is on your resume, because like people like. Managers don't go down a level, succeed like he does. I think what he's trying to say is, I'm ready to go back up there. that, take me off the bench. I'm ready to go back in the big game. It's a little tough to argue because I don't think you would disagree with me that if he was young, he's coming up. There's no doubt about it. He's one of the top coaches in the world. It's only because of his history, maybe some of his bad behavior, that he's not being considered. I think he's selling himself to the big clubs right now, or he at least believes that he should be up there. And I got to be honest, tough to argue with him because he went back down and accomplished probably more than anybody thought he would.
Maybe, but at the same time, sure, if he was a young coach, all right, people would be looking at this better. But as a young coach, he probably wouldn't have the history that Mourinho has. Yeah. Mourinho, sure, he did well to get the Europa League with Manchester United, but his league form wasn't very good at all. Like, sure, he finished second, but he was like 20 points behind City. And other than that, he didn't do too well. Lost his job. Tottenham Hotspur, he completely failed there. So yeah, he's done well enough to get to these finals at Roma, one of the biggest clubs in Italy.
Yeah,
like, it's still one of the biggest clubs. But when you look at it contextually, he's failed at big clubs before he did this, whereas a young coach probably would have come up from like one of the lesser teams to come and do this. So it's like they don't have the history of failure at the top where you can clearly see a drop off. The Mourinho that won so much at Chelsea, did really well at Real Madrid, and won the treble with Inter, there's a point where that coach seemed to go away and his results at the top steadily was declining. So sure, this is like breathed a bit more life into his career, but if you're a top club, are you looking at like his clear drop off and thinking, yeah, let's give him another shot? Or are you looking at those young coaches who look promising, who look like their best is yet to come, unlike Mourinho?
I think it's a fair argument, but I think under normal circumstances, I think he's made the argument that he deserves a shot. Now, the only, I think, rational reason not to give him a shot to a bigger club is really his behavior. He's a loose cannon. That some of the stuff he does, I think the stuff that used to pump the players up maybe 15 years ago, I don't think it has a similar effect. I mean, I think a lot of people find themselves saying, "Oh, come on, Jose. Yeah, we get it. It's an act. Yeah, you're trying to take the heat off the players. Yeah." I think that was if he doesn't go up or should, but I personally believe that this is where I disagree with you. I don't think you're making any bad points. I think with his record, last 3 years, he deserves a shot. He deserves another shot to go back up. That's all I'll say. I think that's also difficult to argue if you forget all the baggage that comes with a Jose Mourinho.
I just want to add quickly as well. We're talking purely his record in Europe. His European record's been good. His league record, again at Roma, not that good. He didn't make the top 4 with Roma. Whilst you had Sarri at Lazio, and Lazio had a smaller budget, they didn't have players like Paulo Dybala coming into the club, Tammy Abraham. He was working on a smaller budget with a lesser squad, arguably, and Maurizio Sarri finished second last season with Lazio, whereas Mourinho didn't even make the top 4. So yeah, his European record's been good, but again, he's still been lacking in the league. So I think that is another case.
That's another argument you can make against them.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Switching real quick to MLS. Still, I think one of the best players in Europe, Olivier Giroud. It looks like it might be done. Mr. Romano reports, understand LAFC sent their formal contract proposal to Olivier Giroud to join as a free agent. Giroud has also received higher proposals from other clubs. Boy, if you needed a guy like him. And taking his time to decide, but LAFC are the favorites. Is it time for Giroud to go to the American retirement home? I certainly want him on my team. He still has it. I still think he's one of the best guys in Europe. In times he's carried AC Milan, but when Polasek and Leao cooled off a little bit. But I guess my question to you is it a little too early? I mean, he's an older guy. I think he's 36, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah,
I think he's 36, so he's about the same age as Messi. Is it time now? Is it time to make that switch now? Get a little money, have a little venture in the States, take the pressure off because you don't have the pressure in the States that you would in Europe, or does he have a lot more to give to other clubs? What do you think?
I think he certainly does still have stuff to give in Europe, definitely, but if he was to make the move to MLS, I think now is a good time with his age, 36. Like, sure, he's still playing really well, but he could go to the MLS now and play really well because he's still got it in him. Do well at LA, and have a bit of a legacy in the MLS. Not so much like Beckham or whatever, like a long-term legacy, but at least he wouldn't be one of these players that came to the MLS with like a bigger name and sort of did nothing because they were completely past it.
Sure. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I thought you were done.
Depends what role it depends what role he wants in Europe as well. Like, he's the starter for AC Milan. They're sort of not doing as well. If he was to leave Milan, realistically, I don't know what top clubs are going to want him. So if he was to decide he wants to still go for it in Europe, it's either stay at Milan, who are going to be playing Champions League but probably not up at the top of it, or go MLS.
He's kind of in a messy situation where, yeah, he could still play, and he's still Champions League's caliber, but he comes with a huge price tag. And there's younger guys that are probably cheaper, which might be long-term better options. He seems to be in that middle. That does seem to be a good time to go to MLS. And, LAFC has not been the face of the league since the emergence of, LA Galaxy has not been the face of the league as they're in the past as LAFC's emergence. They're looking a little weak now. And he can go be with his, the goalie's over there. What's his name? In Galaxy. Yeah, so he go play. He can be with his buddy, have a good time in LA, walk around all that money. I'm so jealous. Lots of chicks. I don't know if he's married or not. I apologize if he is. That's probably a really good fit for him. You got Messi in the league. It's looking very strong that you're going to get Lewandowski, which is very exciting. When all those guys going over there, this is MLS is kind of in a mini golden age right now. If they can pull these moves off, I attest that it's a very exciting league to watch. Certainly, it's not the best football on the planet, but I never regret paying my $100 to Apple TV. It's really enjoyable. So yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think it's probably now or never, because you don't want to go over there and have nothing. I mean, I'm already seeing like Busquets has lost a step even since last year. You want to go there with something. Beckham came. I don't want to say he was washed, but he wasn't the dominant player that he was. Messi went over there as the dominant player that he was, and I like to see these guys go before they have before it's difficult to play and get yourself out there. That's what I kind of like to see. Big game, United States Mexico, a final. If people don't think this is like, look, fight and win, Americans' lack of passion. I hear all the jokes and what have you. Some of them are more than deserved. But if you don't think this is one of the biggest derbies in football, you're nuts. I'm sorry. This is nuts. But the strange thing about this particular game is the United States handled them. This is out of last 7 games. So that's that. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, that's five wins and 2 ties. I can, with confidence, not sound like an American idiot, say that at this present time, and maybe in the past 2 years, the American side is a much better. I'm not saying the American League. I'm not saying the MLS. The American side is a much better team than Mexico, and it's getting to the point where they're handling them. I got to be honest with you, like. We did the watch along here with Biscuit Batcher. It wasn't exciting, and it usually is really intense. It was a little chippy at times, but it was not super intense. And I'm looking at the guys. There's a lot more guys that are playing in Liga MX. A lot more guys on United States roster playing in big clubs. Not to say that I don't have respect for the Mexican players. They're great. I love Alvarez. I love all those guys, but. It does seem like the United States has surpassed them. Am I being an overly optimistic American or what?
I think that's fair to say. Like, because obviously in the past where the US has maybe not been so good, you've had like 1 or 2 like star players, like your Clint Dempsey or
Leonard
Donovan. Whereas now you look at the US squad. Sure, you've got MLS players who are doing really well and coming through, but the majority of that squad is obviously European League players now.
Yeah.
And I think that just shows the quality increase now. Is like, Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Weston McKennie, Timothy Weah, they're all playing in Europe, and most of them at good clubs in Europe. So in fact,
Dest as
they're
well.
getting there.
Dest is not
Serginho Dest, another.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it clearly shows an increase in the US player quality, and I think, like Mexico haven't had so many stars recently. Like in the past, they've had some really great players like Hugo Sanchez, but
Rafa
now,
Marquez.
Rafa Marquez. Yeah. Now you're looking at the Mexico squad. Sure, you have like recognizable names like Herving Lozano there, or like Santiago Jimenez, who are like good level players in Europe, but like not superstars.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. Like you mentioned, Donovan and Clint Dempsey. I think we got like 6 of them now, rather than just 2. Rather just 2 of them. A couple guys playing in some smaller teams in Europe, maybe a few second leaguers, and MLS guys. This is a much better team. I think those are good teams too. I don't want to disrespect any of those guys, but I think that I'm a lot more comfortable with this club. I don't think they're World Cup quality, and I think the best I can hope for is them to do some damage in the Copa America this summer. Is a very big tournament. It's very big, and for us in Europe, if you're really crazy, and if you're in the States, it's even better. You get Euros in the morning, Copa America at night, and then if you're European, you get Euros and you get Copa America, which Messi is playing in, by the way. You get Copa America in the overnight. So we got a lot to look forward to this summer from just those tournaments alone. And if Leagues Cup is half as good as it was last year, it's a big success. That being said, I don't know how familiar you are with Liga MX. I don't know. I can't say I'm super familiar with the Mexican FA. What are they doing wrong over there? Is this just a down period of talent? You do get talent droughts over periods of time. Is there a few guys coming up that can really do some damage, or is there something that can be done managerially? Is there something that can be done to get their players trained better? Like, what is Mexico doing wrong?
Well, I'm not too familiar with Liga MX. I'm not too familiar with the Mexican system on how they bring players through, but it doesn't seem like they're doing anything necessarily worse now from an outside. Like I say, you still got Herving Lozano who came through in the Dutch league, and he was at Napoli last year when they won the title. You had Santiago Jimenez playing really well at Feyenoord. Maybe it's just a down period, whilst also at the same time the US, where football is growing in the country, you're getting more players come through from the US. So it's like the US are getting better at bringing players through and getting more talent come through, whilst Mexico's maybe not so necessarily doing something wrong with how they're developing young players, but just having.
I think they got to do, because like the way the U.S. policy now is get these guys to Europe as quickly as possible. You have seen situations where good players have stayed in Mexico or come back from Europe early. I think it's time to get these guys and start pushing them towards Europe. But I don't know. Maybe Liga MX is afraid to do that because Mexicans are kind of they'll stay home. They will stay home, and now I think there should be probably more of an emphasis in there. It's like you have to do what the U.S. is doing. You have to get these guys to Europe. But I do think there may be just a normal downturn in talent that just happens. It's going to happen everywhere. Certainly, the United States didn't make the World Cup in 2018. We made every reasonable one prior to that in 1990. There was a downturn, and maybe it's just their turn. But and I actually, as strange as it sounds, I hope Mexico gets better because I want to go back to those matches. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds in this, but it does bring up kind of segue good for our next story. We talked about it on the watch along, me and Biscuit Basher. At the end of it, there's a chant during goal kicks that the Mexicans been doing. They've gotten the game delayed and suspended, and I think last time they called it off halfway through, where they say something crude against homosexuals, and it's loud. It's a loud chant. It's something goes on in Liga MX all the time. And they stop the game over it every time. It usually is like in the 80th minute when the United States clearly has a victory ahead of them. I got to be honest with you. Like, I hate stopping these games. It really bothers me. I keep on hearing that something should be done. Well, what? Like, throw them out of the Euros, end games, like rip off people that aren't doing it, that are there. Certainly, I mean, look, it's CONCACAF's rules, but they are allowed to say something horrible. It's not illegal like it would be in Europe, and I certainly wouldn't want it to be. You're gonna pick people out of the crowd, and I think like Biscuit brought up a really good point. You're allowing the the worst Mexican fans to control the game, and it's just like they got to stop it because these chants, stop the entire game. And they, in fairness to the refs, they don't do it right after the first time they hear it, which they're supposed to. Thank God they don't, because it would become a real circus. But I think stopping the game is encouraging these guys. Is there anything to be done about this, or is this just sort of like we're living in a time where everybody feels like they have to do something about this, or they don't? I don't know. I don't want to put too much pressure on you, but it does kind of segue into our next story.
I mean, yeah, I think I lean more into the camp of people need to get over it a bit. Like, obviously, it's not nice to have, like, horrible things chanted at you, but, yeah, like, you give the crowds too much power if you do stop the games or anything like that. I think that's a bigger issue, is giving them so much power where, like, let's say a game's not going their way, all they have to do is start chanting something homophobic or something like that, and all of a sudden, like, the game stops. You make all these,
and it encourages it, because if you're drunk and your team's down 2-3-0, it's like, I don't care if they call the game or not. I mean, you're giving like the worst people the power, yet you have this sort of empty saying something has to be done. Something has to be done. Well, does it have to be stupid? Does it have to ruin the game? I don't know. Are we really talking? I think the only thing that could be done, which seems draconian, is throw them out of the World Cup, throw them out of a major tournament. I don't want that.
I don't think that's the way forward, because there's especially internationally, right? Mexico, you've got a whole nation full of people who want to see their country play in the World Cup. They're going to support them. They love it, and because like 10,000 fans in a stadium or whatever are going to ruin that for an entire nation's worth of people. I don't think that
doesn't seem to be fair at all.
So many people.
I don't know, but something needs to be done. Something needs to be done. I notice when you push these guys on what needs to be done, nobody knows has an answer.
I'm not sure what can be done, which is fair, in all honesty.
And I'm not defending it in any way, and I'm not. I have heard Mexicans defend it, and Zealand had a guy on it. We're not saying the F slur. We're just kind of calling him a bitch. And then somebody goes on, that's not the definition. And like, oh God, you have a semantic debate about a crude thing to say. I mean, really? I don't know. I think you're giving a hell of a lot more power to the worst types of fans. But I think in today's kind of hypercharged racial woke environment, it's just like we have to do something, even if it's a bad idea. So here we go. Also, leading into that, Serie A sports judge decided against any sanction allegations of racism involving Inter. Francisco, I hate these names. Help me. What's this guy's name? Cherby at Napoli's Juan Jesus, no sanction. Serie A statement report. So, can you tell me the situation? I wasn't too familiar with. Like, what happened here?
So, from what I've seen, is it was on the pitch in the game. Juan Jesus. To be fair, in the video, it does look a bit like Acerbi says, like the N word.
Yeah.
But like not the English one, like how Spaniards
the Spanish.
Refer to. Yeah.
Okay.
And it does look a bit like he mouths it, and Juan Jesus seemed to have gone to the ref saying, he said something racist towards me, and Acerbi supposedly apologized on the pitch to Jesus, be like, I don't mean it in that way, and Jesus was supposedly okay with that. And then after the game, when it was brought up, because obviously the referee was brought into it, Acerbi denied saying anything, to which Jesus then came out and was like, you
apologized to me, yeah.
You apologized, I was willing to drop it. And supposedly Serie A have looked into it, and they can't prove enough.
Yeah, I mean,
he's not being charged.
No, so, I didn't know that. I thought this was gonna be a situation where it's his. you can't suspend people because my word against yours every time. Otherwise, minority players would be accusing every good non-minority of say, or not even non-minority, but any player of using a racial language, you get him suspended the next game. As we all know, football players will take any kind of edge. They'll roll on the ground, pretend they've been shot in the leg. I mean, this is what I worry about the Vinicius Jr. situation. That he riles up the crowd and then cries that everybody says horrible things about him. This is what I worry. But this sounds a little different. This sounds like another like sort of a Lukaku black eye against Serie A. So you have an apology, you have somebody mouthing it on television, and they said they can't find any. And like I don't know. I'm gonna stick to Serie A on this. I think they dropped the ball. Yeah, sure. If those are the rules, then they have to follow the rules, regardless of what I think of the rules. No, I think they dropped the ball here. You think?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough situation because obviously Acerbi's come out now and said he only apologised because he was like to please him, sort of thing. To be like, oh well.
Yeah, that sounds phony too. Well, don't apologize for shit you didn't do.
Just to diffuse it. Yeah, that's basically what his story seems to be now. So yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one, but the video when you watch it, like
it's I know what word it is too.
Expert, but it does look a bit like he does say it.
Yeah,
so.
that would have probably been enough for me.
Yeah.
I think that Serie A would have been right. With suspending him, and the Lukaku situation was just really awful. I mean, he shushed the crowd, and like they hadn't done anything about the crowd, and then he shushed them, and then he got a red card. That was awful. Serie A definitely has some issues. I'm not as convinced with some other leagues, and I do think it kind of goes in the overreaction we were talking before. You're starting to give fans more power. We had the tragedy chanting with United and Liverpool fans. People got arrested. Really, I just can't get my American head around that, man. Arresting people for any kind of expression, no matter how vile, that just goes against all my views, all my morals and principles. But I mean, that's the way it rolls in Europe. So, all right, I'm gonna go back. I was gonna say. What was Serie A to do? They can't. And now I'm a little like, if I'm going to take your word for it, I think they got to enforce. Like, just that the principle is like, you got to enforce rules. Then they absolutely should have done it. All right, here in lighter news, 14-year-old Chelsea wonder kid Kendry Prez. This is your territory. Like,
I think it's Paez.
Paez is being investigated by Ecuadorian Football Federation after footage appeared to him throwing dollar bills at strippers in New York a day before the game versus Italy, which is Red Bull Arena, by the way. It's funny to me. I don't care. I'm not a pearl clutcher, but I will say this: you have an update in this information, correct?
Well, apparently now the Ecuadorian FA are looking at potentially kicking out some of the senior players who brought him to the strip club.
Which is, by the way, it's crime in New York to do that. Usually the club takes on most of the, but you know how they got that. This is a football team. They're going to let everybody through. They got to be at least 18, right? Not in soccer. They could be 14-year-olds there in rare cases, 15, 16-year-olds. I mean, look, I don't think this guy's life's going to be ruined or anything, but they did break the law. The club is potentially, I mean... I'm not going to pearl clutch over this. I hope nobody gets kicked off the team. Maybe they get a stern talking to. But, when you do expose, in the United States, when you do expose minors to this type of stuff, this is a crime. There's no doubt about it. Will it be enforced? More than likely not. I think if you were a kid and you snuck into a strip club, the worst, they tell your parents. For some reason, if you kept doing it, maybe they get the juvenile delinquent courts involved. But, I mean, we're not talking about a serious thing here. But it's definitely very funny. I don't know. You think anything more should be done? Because, like I said, they did break the law. I don't think they want to hear it from NYPD. Like where do we go from here?
Yeah, I don't know. Laws are laws, I suppose. But yeah, like he's 16, sure, but he's playing international football. He's probably got plenty.
I'm sure he's never seen a naked woman before.
He's gonna be more mature than your average 16-year-old.
I suppose. I think he'll be okay. I think it's funny. I'm sure a lot of people would pro clutch over that, but not me. Not me. Oh, this is a really funny story. More light football nude. Declan writes, last week I saw John Stone. He didn't even know we were playing us next. They said, hey, big game, next. John said, who you playing? I said, we got you. John said, oh, yeah? He likes to take it one game at a time. I get that. Or he's dopey. One of the two. Yeah. John Stone. Yeah, go ahead.
He's just like me, because whenever anyone asks me, oh yeah, who do Braintree play next, or who do Chelsea play next?
I don't know.
I don't know.
No problem.
I just find out on the match day.
So he's got to check his foot. Well, it'd be funny if he put out the football app and said, "Oh, it's you." You know, that would have been super funny. Love John Stones, but he's an Englishman's Englishman, huh? He is just like what I picture. Like if I was going to draw an English football person, you know, in that universe, it's John Stones, man. It's John Stones. Lot of John. When I was in Tenerife, of course, you know, you got Tenerife in the summertime is it's a UN. A lot of John Stones jerseys. A lot of Stones jerseys. People really love him. I like him too, and he's a special talent. All right, let's move on to another one after this. I want to get your view on this. Bayern Munich gives Alphonso Davies, Canadian Alphonso Davies, an ultimatum for his contract concessions without a response. He'll put on sale for $50 million. Sounds a little cheap. With Real Madrid in the driving seat for the signature. What do you think about this? Is this a good place to go? Should he stay with Bayern? Like, what's your move here if you're Alphonso Davies?
If I'm Alphonso Davies, I think it's a good move. Real Madrid have a really exciting project with the young players coming through. They've obviously got the top class
dominating.
Players yeah, they've got Kroos, Modric like that now, but you look at their new team come through. This is why I keep saying I hate how well they're run.
Yeah, they really are.
I think they have the best young core in the world right now, because you've got Mbappe supposedly coming.
Yeah, he's
but
coming.
even if he doesn't, you've got Vinicius Jr., who's early 20s, top class player. Rodrigo on the right hand side, who is like so underrated, I think, at the moment. I think he's almost as good as Vinicius. You got Jude Bellingham, who's on course for potential Ballon d'Or.
Great
the way he's
year
playing
this
at the
year.
moment.
Didn't think it would happen. A great year.
Yeah, behind him you've got Camavinga and Tchouaméni, the two Frenchmen in midfield who look like two of the best young midfielders in world football. And so, and they're in talks with another young centre-back. So, if you're Alphonso Davies, right, Bayern isn't looking too hot at the moment. You know, you've won the Champions League there, you've won stuff there. Real Madrid is the glamour club. They've got a really cool young squad.
You got a coaching change coming in there, too. You don't know how that's going to fly. I tend to agree with you. But go ahead. I know I interrupted you, but finish your thought.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I think like left back isn't looking too strong, too certain at the moment. You had Ferland Mendy, who was supposed to be quite good, but he's had injuries. And so, yeah, I think there's certainly a spot for him in the squad. It's a really exciting young team. Why not if you're Davies?
I can't disagree with you at all. Let's try to get through these figures. You got to get going pretty soon. Luis Enrique, PSG coach. Maybe I can bench Mbappe against Barca. Donate $4 million to the Zana Foundation, and maybe I bench him. Send me an invoice. That's got to be. I mean, he's joking clearly, because that's got to be against some kind of rule, right?
It would be hella funny though if the Barca fans did raise the $4 million and were like, "Yep, go on then."
I think he would be in trouble.
Bargain now.
I'm guarantee he's been some kind of rule, and I'm sure Mbappe wouldn't appreciate that either. Or maybe he doesn't care at this point, because he had that weird situation where he pulled him off in the half, and then he took his uniform off and sat with his mother. I gotta answer. I'm sure I'm gonna take shit for this, but I don't like Mbappe's attitude. Certainly, he's probably the best player on earth. I don't know. He seems like I get the vibe from him that he thinks he's above the game, above the team. Quite possibly that might have a lot to do with his probably miserable time at PSG coming to an end. I don't blame him for wanting to leave. I'm behind him on that. But there are times where he doesn't seem like much of a teammate and a bit of a diva. Is that I can't imagine Real Madrid tolerating that, even if he's at the top of his game. You know, you just said to yourself, they're really well run. Is this going to be an issue for him, or does he just leave this kind of attitude behind in Paris?
Yeah, maybe it's an issue for them, but yeah, at the same time, you got to look at it. The way he's been treated as PSG is like he is the star man. You know, they've had meetings with Macron to keep him at the club. They're giving him as much money as they physically can. They're saying that he can get involved in the transfers. Yeah. You know, that's going to build up someone's ego way more. Whereas he goes to Real Madrid, he's probably the star man at Real Madrid, but you've got like we spoke before about people like Bellingham, Vinicius Junior, Kroos.
And he's
These
gonna have to
are
work
top
with them. He's not.
stars.
It's gonna be a very,
Yeah.
very different situation for him. Yes, he played with Messi and Neymar. But the core behind that, well, there wasn't really much behind that. This is an entire team. Los Broncos, what did they call them back in the day when Zidane and what was
the
that?
Galacticos.
We're talking about Galacticos Part 3, situation. But you got to be a team. And if I remember correctly, how many championships did the Galacticos? This is pre Ronaldo. How many championships did they win?
I don't know off by heart, but they're not as successful as you would have.
You would thought they
sort
would
of
have been. Yeah, they're
they weren't winning it every year, despite the fact, like Zidane, Figo, Ronaldo, like ridiculous, and that maybe came
super
down to team
teams
balance or whatever.
in all sports tend to have problems unless they're built organically through the youth system. That's my personal experience, and that's all sports right there. And unless it's a situation about throwing hockey, the Edmonton Oilers, when they had the Gretzky's, the Messiers, and they kind of came through the Edmonton system. When you kind of buy your way through it, there's ego clashes, there's all sorts of problems. It's really, people thought PSG were going to win their first title, no problem. They're going to cruise. Didn't happen. That's why I think it's probably so important that Mbappe becomes a teammate. And look, they have treated him poorly. They never should have, they overhyped him, and then he started believing his own hype, and he behaved accordingly. So hopefully, maybe walking in that locker room, which has got to be intimidating for any football player on earth, maybe even like somebody like a Messi or some of the greatest of all time. That's it. I hope they bring him down to earth, because I really don't think they will put up with his shit. I don't think he can call up and cry about the coach or any other situation over there. They've had the biggest players in the world. They have had succeeded, and they'll succeed with Mbappe or without. So I hope he's ready for that. Let's go over some of the top 5 highest paid managers on a monthly basis. Oh, Jesus. Mauricio, where does he play? $800K a month.
Pochettino, Chelsea coach.
Chelsea. Why is anybody making that much money at Chelsea? Algeri. Messi, Milano, Algeria, $900K. Jurgen Klopp, $1.2 million. Pep, 1.6, and Diego Simone, 2. How is he? Why is he making that kind of money over Pep and Klopp? Did he just recently get signed or something?
Diego Simeone, so he plays for this team, actually, funnily enough, Atletico Madrid. He's been coaching them for over a decade now.
So they're okay. So he's probably got raise after raise after raise.
Oh yeah, he got like a massive contract back in like 2018, I think, was when he became the highest paid. But they were a good La Liga side, but he sort of built them into like being one of the big 3 at times, where it's been like Barca, Real Madrid, and Atletico Madrid are usually seen as the 3rd best under Simeone. I think he's overpaid, but I think that's why he's the highest earning, is because
he's just been there a long time.
That club, so they were like willing to reward him for what he did.
Flamengo striker Gaboli, tell me with these terrible names, will you? Gabagol. Sounds like Gabagool. Has been suspended for the next 2 years after attempting to deceive anti-doping control. 2 years out from he'll be out starting this April. And he will appeal the sentence afterwards. What's to say, really? Do you have a comment on this?
Other than that, it's a shame. He was a player I liked a few years back. There was a heavy rumours that Chelsea were going to sign him, and I was all for it because the price seemed pretty low, and he'd just broken the scoring record. But yeah, other than that's a shame, really, because he's certainly a talented player, so losing him for 2 years kind of sucks. But
yeah, absolutely.
And the rules.
Yeah, the rules, them the rules. Hey, listen, if you wanted the coolest league system on the planet, all right, on the planet, take what is it? It's called the Monday League. I don't know anything about this guy. I caught one of his videos. I watch a lot of football YouTube. A beginner's guide to Belgian football leagues and its clubs and their history, and who's got the craziest fans, who doesn't, who are the family teams. the most important part is the beginning, is their relegation, promotion, playoff plus playoff system, which is one of the most unique in the world. Highly recommend this video. Go check it out. It's really, really cool. It's awesome. And one of the things I like about league, I like league diversity. I don't think everything should be like in the Prem. I actually like no promotion relegation in MLS. First of all, I think it's the only option because we don't have the fan support, and I don't even want it if we do. But I like diversity when it comes to different leagues. I don't think every league should be exactly the same or what have you. But if you want to know about the Belgian Football League, their derbies and their system, which gets a little complicated when it comes to relegation promotion too, by the way. But they essentially have a playoff, and for like conference, for Europa, for the Champions League, and it's really good stuff, and it's a damn good league, and you should check it out. And that's all I got. You got anything else?
Not off the top of my head, no.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being a part of Glory Hunters podcast. We'll be back with you next week. That's 2 weeks in a row we did it. And we did it. We absolutely did it. I cannot believe it. We made it happen. We made it happen. Thanks so much, everybody, and good night.